Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you the 10 best weapons in HumanitZ. And look, I'm not talking about balanced little guns. I'm talking about those completely broken options. So, fix your posture, prep your backpack, and come with me to find out which gear will turn you into a true terror in this game. Taking the 10th spot is the RPG, which is a powerhouse for mass explosions that clears hordes or enemy bases in the blink of an eye. This rocket launcher is the king of the late game, perfect for when you already have a solid base and want to decimate giant groups of zombies without getting your hands dirty up close. I always feel that adrenaline rush when I aim at an oncoming horde and pull the trigger. It's instant, loud, and incredibly satisfying. But watch out for the recoil and splash damage, which can catch you if you don't position yourself right. Where to hunt this monster? Mainly in military bunkers, like those in C3 and other military points scattered across the map, as well as rare military crates that drop in high-risk areas. In my time playing, I save the RPG for epic moments, like defending the base from a massive invasion, or clearing a path through hostile territories. Putting the fire axe here was a decision I'll defend tooth and nail. A lot of people underestimate melee weapons in HumanitZ, but the fire axe is literally one of the most versatile tools you can have in your hands. High damage, decent range for melee, and it even breaks trees and cars along the way. It's utilitarian and lethal at the same time, which is extremely rare. What impresses me most is that when you invest in firefighter skills, the damage goes up by a massive 50%. Then it hits a whole new level. You walk into a group of zombies with that axe, and it's like being a silent cleaner, no ammo spent, no noise to draw more enemies toward you. In phases where ammo is scarce, this thing is a total blessing. For those looking to find the fire axe, the best place is definitely the fire stations scattered around the map. Firefighter loot in general is already great, but when you see this axe on a shelf, it feels like hitting the jackpot. It's not as rare as military weapons, but it's not around every corner either. I personally carry the fire axe as a secondary weapon even in the mid-game when I already have firearms. There's a different, almost therapeutic pleasure in clearing a room full of zombies with just an axe without spending a single bullet. Plus, if you need to chop wood to reinforce your base afterward, you're already equipped. Total efficiency. In the 8th spot of my ranking, I'm putting the Molotov because it's that type of cheap weapon that, once you understand the timing, becomes true crowd control. Unlike many things in the game that depend on loot luck, here you can plan. If you set aside the right items, you'll always have a ready answer for when the horde decides to corner you. The reason I like it so much is the continuous damage. You throw it, create a fire zone, and suddenly an entire group starts melting without you needing to keep switching targets. In practice, it works as a spatial tool because it forces zombies to walk through fire or get disorganized, giving you precious seconds to retreat, heal, or reposition. Regarding where to find it, I follow the exact same logic you described. You can craft it with cloth and a bottle of liquor, vodka, and you can still scavenge these items in bars and houses during loot runs. What I find strongest is the consistency. If I know I'm heading into a dangerous area, I head out with 2 or 3 ready, so I'm not a hostage to finding grenades along the way. Personally, I don't use the Molotov as a first strike every time. I use it as anti-chaos insurance when the horde closes in, when there's a narrow hallway, or when I need to stop a chase without wasting ammo. And there's one detail I always tell myself. The Molotov is wonderful, but it requires discipline. If you throw it on yourself or cut off your own escape route, the game punishes you instantly. In 7th place on my top 10, I'm putting the AWS, because it's the type of weapon that totally changes your playstyle in HumanitZ. Instead of going into everything based on improvisation, you start thinking about angles, lines of sight, and field control before the chaos even begins. And when you fit it into your kit, it gives you that feeling that you finally have a clean answer for long-range threats. What makes the AWS shine for me is that supreme sniper vibe. One hit and it's over. You remove dangerous zombies before they even become a problem. And with a strong scope, you see and decide the fight the way you want, not the way the horde dictates. It's a rare weapon, but precisely because of that, every time it appears, it feels like the game gave you a prize. To get one, I'd aim mainly for military bunkers and high-tier military areas, as these places usually concentrate the heaviest and most valuable loot in the game, even if they charge a high price in risk and preparation. I treat these runs like missions. I bring healing, food, a reliable backup, and I take it slow, because it's the kind of place where one small mistake turns into a huge chase. I use the AWS as a first contact tool. I open the route, clear what I can from afar, and only then do I move into loot. It's not the weapon that will save you if you've already let the horde get close, but it's one of the best for preventing that from happening. In 6th place on my top 10, I'm putting the UMP-45 because it's the definition of a close-range problem solver in HumanitZ. You go in, pivot, shoot, and get out before the situation turns into a group hug from the horde. It doesn't have the glamour of a sniper, but it's that weapon that makes you confident enough to play aggressively when the map forces you to fight in tight spaces. What makes the UMP-45 so strong for me is the insane fire rate and the feeling of mobility, especially when you're running and gunning without totally losing control. Using 45 ACP ammo gives it an impact punch that I really enjoy in an SMG, because even when it doesn't drop them instantly, it holds the pressure and wipes out groups fast. The downside is that it drinks ammo, and if you panic and hold the trigger, you'll punish yourself with a reload at the worst possible time. In my personal use, the UMP-45 is an indoor cleaning weapon. Hallways, stairs, narrow doors, and those loot runs that always go wrong just when you think you're safe. I like to work in short bursts, always keeping an escape route, because the UMP-45 wins when you dictate the pace of the fight and loses when you let the horde trap you in a corner. If you pair it with a reliable melee to save ammo on isolated targets, it pays off much more. To find it, I'd look in police stations, military outposts, and especially in bunkers, because these places tend to concentrate higher level loot, but demand a lot in terms of risk and prep. When I go after a UMP-45 in these areas, I go with a mission mentality. The goal is to get out alive with the weapon and enough ammo for it to actually be worth it. You know that weapon you pick up and immediately breathe a sigh of relief because you feel that from here on out the game becomes fairer? For me, that's the AK-47, and that's why it's in 5th place on my top 10. Simple, brutal, and ready to solve problems without any fuss. What makes me like it is the balance between damage and crowd control. Even with recoil, the spray works when the horde is closing in and you need to erase threats fast. I treat the AK as a workhorse, the one I take when I don't want to overthink which weapon is ideal. I just want to survive and come back with loot. And then there's the economy factor. Using 7.62 millimeters and still having good stopping power makes it last through long runs, especially when you're playing aggressively and don't want to count bullets at every door you open. For me, the AK shines when you use short bursts. Keep your trigger finger steady and let the weapon do its basic job well. To find the AK-47, I'd focus on military camps, bunkers, and police. Military loot in general, as that's where the game usually concentrates heavier gear. If you're going after it in bunkers, go with a high-risk, high-reward mindset, because these areas usually have strong loot and punish silly mistakes. When I think of a rifle that just fits the game, the M41 is the first one that comes to mind, which is why it takes the 4th spot in my top 10. It has that feeling of being a complete weapon. It's not overkill, it's not fragile, it just does everything right when you need it most. What wins me over here is the combo of precision and lethality. A well-placed headshot gets the job done, and the weapon responds quickly when you need to switch targets in a pinch. Since it uses 5.56 millimeters, I feel it fits the pace of the game better than heavier rifles, because you can fight quite a bit without living in extreme economy mode. I also love that it becomes a natural base for a stealthier build, especially if you like playing around with silencers and keeping your loot route controlled. When I'm carrying the M41, I feel more confident, invading buildings, clearing hallways, and still having the range to punish zombies before they touch me, without having to resort to a sniper. To find it, I'd say it's the kind of weapon you might get lucky enough to see as early as the initial tutorial, but I usually look for it in police stations and military areas like camps and outposts. And if you're the type who likes to risk it for stronger loot, bunkers are usually the high-risk, high-reward type of place for good gear in general. In third place on my top 10, I'm putting the knife spear, Spartan spear, because it delivers that feeling of total control without needing to turn every encounter into a shootout. HumanitZ really rewards those who play calmly and pick their fights at the right time, and a stealth reach weapon like this fits that style perfectly, especially in a game full of options between melee and firearms. What makes me love this improvised spear is how it cheats the danger of melee combat. You maintain distance, poke, reposition, and rarely need to take a hit in the trade. And when you combine it with the right skills, it gets even more absurd. The backstab damage bonus with Rogue makes every silent pickoff feel surgical, and the stamina efficiency with Spartan lets you fight longer without becoming a hostage to an empty bar. In practice, I use the knife spear like a dueling weapon. Silent 1v1s, narrow hallways, house entrances, that area clearing before you really start looting. The secret is not to go into greedy mode. Give it a thrust, step back half a pace, wait for the zombie to commit, and repeat. Because the range is both your armor and your escape route. Best of all, it's very accessible. You can craft it with a knife and wood, so if you're organized, you're never without one. For loot, I usually assemble it with what appears in houses and kitchens, knives, and supplement with wood along the way. And sometimes it also drops in campsites as you're roaming the map. If you want some honest advice, always keep an extra knife stored, because once you get used to this spear, going back to short-range melee makes the game feel dangerous out of nowhere. In second place on my top 10, I'm putting the nail wood weapon, the classic nail bat, because few things in the beginning of HumanitZ provide as much security as having a simple melee that actually works. HumanitZ has a wide variety of weapons for different styles, but this one shines precisely because it's direct and practical. What wins me over is the perfect start package. Quick crafting, the ability to go for one-hit headshots when you aim well, and most importantly, it doesn't force you to make noise and become a beacon for trouble. I like it because it lets you play at your own pace, clearing house by house without turning every loot run into a war. In use, I treat it as a true first hours weapon. Aim for the head, hit, and reposition immediately without getting greedy trying to trade damage. And since it's easy to replace, I play much more lightheartedly. If it breaks, fine, I'll make another one and move on, without that I lost a rare item feeling. To get it, I follow the most efficient path. Craft with 1 wood plus 10 nails. And I farm these in garages and houses where these items appear frequently. If I had to give some honest advice, make 2 at once and keep 1 stored at the base, because this weapon saves runs when you least expect it. In first place on my top 10, I'm putting the compound bow because to me, it's the weapon that most breaks the logic of chaos in HumanitZ. You remain lethal without turning every combat into a general alarm. HumanitZ has a very varied arsenal of firearms and silent options, and the compound bow is where the game seems to reward you for playing with a cool head. The reason is simple and very personal: silence. A well-placed headshot resolves things without attracting the horde, and that completely changes the rhythm of the early and mid-game, because you can clear an entire area with patience instead of going into panic mode and wasting ammo. And when bow mastery kicks in the way you described, zeroing out stamina costs, it becomes that I can do this all day feeling without getting stuck by the bar. What I like most about the compound bow is the infinite economy. Arrows are craftable, so you always have ammo if you're collecting the basics and not throwing everything away. For me, it's perfect for 1v1s and for pulling zombies in small quantities, because you decide the pace of the encounter. If you miss an arrow, you retreat, reposition, and try again, without that avalanche of noise a gunshot usually causes. To get it, I'd go the most consistent route. Craft it in the menu using wood and rope, and then supplement with loot in rural houses, hunting spots, and warehouses, which usually have this type of material and survival vibe. If I had to give a really honest tip from someone who uses the bow whenever possible, carry more arrows than you think you need. Because once the bow fits your style, you'll start solving everything cleanly and won't even want to think about drawing attention.